Hey guys, Desolator Magic here, and we've got more news in the Magic world when it comes to Historic. First of all, the Historic Anthology, which is a pack of cards that Wizards handpicked to inject into the format. That is coming in about 3 days. But on a live stream, they did show off 2 of the cards that we're going to see. Now, they have changed the amount of cards that we got in the first 2 Historic Anthologies. Number 1 was 20 cards, number 2 was 25 cards, despite them saying that they wanted all of them to be 15 to 20 cards. But, well, let me make this whole thing make more sense. Let's step back. What is Historic? Why did they make it? And why are they doing this? So, Modern is awful, the power level is out of control, and they refuse to manage it properly. Everybody's sick of it. It went from being stale to changing way too often because the power level of Standard cards went through the roof, and now every time a new Standard set comes out, it shakes up Modern, everybody's pissed. So, your $2,000 deck that you could play with, 3 years ago, no. Which is actually the point of a non-rotating format, that you can, pick a pretty good deck and run it, forever, theoretically. I mean, you're never going to have no changes, but the changes have been too drastic. And like I said, with the sheer number of sets that are legal in Modern, it's just too powerful. So they wanted something in the middle. Frontier was dead on arrival because it included fetch lands. So that died, plus it was made by, random people. So then they brought out Pioneer. Now, Pioneer is like the paper card version of Historic, but it goes back quite a bit further, and all the fetch lands are banned by default. Now that is how you launch a format. Pioneer has been somewhat popular, although it depends how you measure it. They had like an actual tournament in one country, and the turnout was horrific. But just in the community in general, a lot of people have nothing bad to say about it. They love it. They play it all the time. I heard the events are kind of blowing up on MTGO. A lot of people like it because you can build something a little bit more powerful than Standard, which I know literally as of the last 2 sets sounds really like not a good idea. But back when Standard's power level was a little bit more tame, it made sense. And also, people just wanted to play stuff from their recent history. A lot of people who are playing Magic right now have only been playing for 3 or less years. So after their favorite mechanics and their, nostalgic, whatever that they started playing the game with, when that all became illegal to play with in Standard, it's like, oh, well, I miss it. So boom, go play Pioneer, and you can play it again. So for reference, Pioneer starts with Return to Ravnica, which was somewhere around like 2014. So it includes that whole block, which is Gatecrash, Dragon's Maze, and then the Magic 2014 core set. Now, Historic, by comparison, starts with Ixalan, which, just cycled out. So it is way narrower. So if you're looking for the whole blast from the past nostalgia, last 6 years of cards, no. But the whole reason that Historic exists when, fracturing it and fragmenting in between that and Pioneer is idiotic is because of MTG Arena. It is the only reason that Historic exists. So there's 2 reasons. The 90% reason is they didn't want people to feel like they're losing all these cards that they, I guess we'll say, bought. Maybe acquired is a better term, on Arena during a rotation. People were pretty pissed during the beta when rotation happened. The sentiment was just clearly, I just lost all these cards. So they're like, we have to do something. So they're like, fine, we'll make like an MTG Arena Eternal format. So it's cards that have always been in Arena. Except remember playing with older cards than Ixalan on Arena? Because Pepperidge Farms remembers. The cards are already in the game. The logic exists and they all worked. Like, just flip the switch, put them in. I don't get it. So their reason behind that, not going back to like Amonkhet and stuff, is, I guess, according to them, because they're remastering it. Like, as if the 3D animations and, like, sound effects and card art weren't good enough. I think they very much were. The more recent ones are maybe a little bit better, but come on, they weren't terrible. Certainly not bad enough to, like, do the work twice, but they have said they're working on older sets, remastering them. They've like, named them by name, so I'm not making this up. So to me, it's just Standard plus Ixalan and Dominaria. Like, who cares? Why even bother? So Historic is such a non-format, except it's really important for narrower things. So they've ran Historic Artisan, and if you're going to limit the card pool to just commons and uncommons, it would help to open it up to, I believe it's 3 additional sets. Now here's the funny thing about Historic. They initially, when they brought out Historic, said, hey, we're limited by not being able to design every single set in Arena, make the mechanics work and the cards work properly, all the way back to where Pioneer starts. That's not reasonable to do right now. In other words, in time for the most recent Standard rotation. So they just threw together what they had and called it Historic. Although, not Amonkhet for some reason. So I guess not what they had done so far. Guys, I think they just knew how toxic Amonkhet was. And God help us all if they brought back energy. So they initially had said they want to reach parity with Pioneer, and they're going to back develop sets and make them work on Arena until they hit the start of Pioneer, and then they're going to stop and just call them both the same thing. Then they pulled a 180 when they released Historic Anthology 1, which was 20 hand-picked cards that came out of nowhere, were much older than the cutoff for Pioneer, and were just a cash grab to get our wild cards. I mean, initially, if you forgot, to unlock one rare in Historic Anthology 1, it was going to take 2 rare wild cards. They dropped that real quick after some backlash. So it was just a scam to get people to spend more money, more coins, more gems. The Historic format didn't need these cards. Nobody wanted these cards. A lot of them were overpowered garbage. I'd say the same thing about 2. I think 4 out of the 25 cards were highly problematic. So they eventually said, oh no, well, because of Historic Anthology 1, we've now added cards that never were in Pioneer. We have no intention to add these to Pioneer because that doesn't make any sense. It's a paper format. So we're actually not trying to reach parity with Pioneer and just bring Pioneer online. And then they flipped it again very recently and said, no, we are again trying to reach parity with Pioneer. We want Arena to go back to exactly Return to Ravnica. So they seem to change their mind pretty often, but, well, it'll just be, I guess, Pioneer with Historic Anthologies added. So it'll never be identical, and the deck list will never be identical, especially since some of the most powerful cards are now in the anthologies. So now it's just devolved into they'll say whatever the hell they feel like on that day. There's no consistency, there's no end goal, and they're just popping out these anthologies to get more of your money. And now you can just buy the anthologies straight up for money, not even for gems. They're just here, pay us 15, 20 bucks or whatever, and you can have all these cards that we added to the game for no reason. So overall, a lot of people who understand and have tracked the history of it do not like Historic. It's literally just a cash grab. That said, if you like it and you play it, I get it, because it's hey, I want to play with those old cards that I used to play on Arena. I miss them. I get it. There's never going to be a counterpoint that's going to undermine that fact if that's you. So there are opinions on both sides, but please do see Historic for what it is. And also, a lot of people remember them when they brought out Historic in the initial announcement saying, we're going to try to, meet it up with Pioneer. And then they also remember them flipping that on its head when Historic came out. But very few people that I've talked to remember them flipping it back and saying, no, we actually are trying to merge it with Pioneer. Well, before you get in the comment section and say that I'm wrong just because you personally missed it, April 13th, 2020 in the State of the Game, they said it. In fact, I believe the exact sentence was, this is a long-term commitment that will eventually lead to additional format support beyond Standard and Historic working towards Pioneer. So, I mean, yeah, they kind of didn't say we're expanding Historic to be Pioneer, but, I mean, come on. So that's how it is, why it is, what it is, where it is, that's everything. That's Historic for you. So on May 8th, they are officially announcing the new Historic Anthology. They might even be launching it that day. I don't know. The facts about this are kind of spread all over the place. But on their awful Twitch live stream that was 23 minutes long, it immediately followed in the article by the statement, or if you're in a hurry, you could check out the cards here. They announced 2 cards that will be included in this one that are making the internet collectively ask, together, with one voice, what the hell were they thinking? They are adding Ulamog the Ceaseless Hunger, which is the BFZ version of Ulamog, and they're adding Phyrexian Obliterator, arguably one of the most powerful creatures ever printed in the history of the game. So Ulamog is a 10/10 indestructible for 10 generic mana. When you cast the spell, exile 2 target permanents, so there goes 2 things, double removal, and whenever he attacks defending player exiles, not to the graveyard, exiles the top 20 cards of their library. So you swing twice, maybe 3 times, and they lose the game. And he's indestructible, and whatever you had that might be able to get rid of him, they just got rid of because he has a double exile effect on ETB. Oh, except, excuse me, it's not ETB. It says when you cast this spell, exile 2 target permanents. So whether the spell resolves or not, you still get the exile effect, which is actually pretty much the number 1 complaint about this card. I love when they announced the return of the Eldrazi as a subtype. They said, well, we're definitely not bringing back Annihilator, and then they just made Library Annihilator. Oh, and then printed that one Eldrazi that basically had Annihilator except spelled out, except a little bit stronger. Oh, you got me on that one, Wizards. You pranked us pretty good. You said you weren't going to print Annihilator, so you just printed something more powerful on one of the cards. Oh, that's clever. I don't actually remember what card it was, or I'd bring it up specifically and read it. I just remember it existing. So Phyrexian Obliterator is the absolute monster threat in my black modern deck, okay? This is one of my all-time top 10 favorite cards in the entire history of the game. That said, let me just cut to first in line in the complaint line for why the hell they would add this to Historic. This is almost too powerful for Modern. There's a reason they chose it for a recent reprint in one of the not too long ago Masters sets, and even before that it was a $50 card. I mean, it's not like the set it was in was printed all that much, you know, and it was a mythic, but still, like, there's some mythics in that set that are 50 cents, you know what I mean? If it hits $50, people play it. And the reason people play it is because it costs 4 black, that's right, 4 mana, all of them black. I mean, you want to talk about a really powerful Black Devotion card. But even besides that, hell, if you could put this in a 3-color deck and pull off the 4 black mana, good for you. Because it's a 5/5 trampler, which is great. But whenever a source deals damage to Phyrexian Obliterator, that means outside combat or in combat, that source's controller sacrifices that many permanents. And this is a 5/5. So if you want to block this with a 7/7, cool, you have to now sacrifice not 5, but 7 permanents, including lands, potentially. But it's not a good card, Dash, because it dies to removal. Post it, motherfucker. Post that shit in the comment section. I fucking dare you. You ignorant ass noob to the game. Post that shit in the comment section. I fucking dare you. And we will all laugh at you and I will mute you permanently. That's not how any of this shit works. And not every deck and every player and every person has a removal spell available at all times in their hand. Okay? I don't know if you've ever seen 2 human beings play a game of Magic before, but sometimes they win with things that are susceptible to removal. Because the card does other shit that's batshit crazy. Like, for example, Phyrexian Obliterator. But yes, keep going on with your fantasy of I'm not going to play anything less than Trawler. It better have 99% evasion or it's not good enough for my deck. And I will beat the living crap out of you with my Black Modern deck, which includes Phyrexian Obliterator. It doesn't matter that this dies to removal. Half the removal you would kill this thing with triggers its ability. If you so much as chump this thing with a 1/1 Death Toucher, which is a really good way to kill it, you're taking 4 overflow trample damage, you're losing what you chump blocked with, and then as an after effect on the stack, you now have to sacrifice one of your permanents. Not too bad overall necessarily, but chances are you don't have a 1/1 Death Toucher in play when this thing comes into play, because why would you? So this is your usual like game-ending threat right here, where if you don't turn it into a frog, exile it, force your opponent to sacrifice it or outright destroy it, you're probably going to lose. Like within a couple turns of this dropping in, you're going to lose. So not like a broken ban worthy card. I mean, they give you some time to respond, unlike, you know, Torbrand or Embercleave where you have 1/8 of one turn or you're dead. Those cards are just bullshit. It still leaves the window open for something to do, but this is at the absolute highest level of power that any creature in the game ever should be. This is as far as anything should go. And some people would even say too far, because if you played this against like a green creature deck, they're just going to lose. I mean, there's nothing they can do. A force fight, they lose 5 permanents or more. Block it and kill it, they lose 5 permanents or more. No deck can survive that, unless it's like a token flood deck, which it wouldn't be. I just said green. I mean, you just lose. You could maybe try to life gain around the 5 damage, but I doubt it. I mean, it's not impossible. There are narrow ways to beat this, and there are, you know, somewhat wide ways to beat it. Like, oh, I don't know, a common 3-cost exile or kill spell. But boy, don't try to beat this thing in combat, and don't try to kill it with a red spell. My favorite way of dealing with it is a shapeshifter, where you target it, and you're like, oh, I have 1/2 now. I guess neither of us is ever going to swing again in this entire game. So while this is like borderline too good of a card in general compared to every card ever printed, do I think it's too powerful for Historic? Are you really asking that question? Yes, I do. Everybody does, it sounds like, from the comments I've heard online. And you might have noticed that Black Devotion is tier 1 right now. I mean, I'm kicking the crap out of people. 60-70% win rate across the board with it, especially since Black runs kill, and that stops Winota, and I'm just going to keep calling him Gyarados because I don't remember his real name. I think it's Gyruda? I don't know, companion guide. For the record, it stops Lurus too, but that's more of like a modern legacy vintage problem. So yeah, this is like batshit crazy right here. Now, the most broken decks in historically, pun intended, are 3-color decks. And the wider the pool gets of potential cards you can play with, the worse 3-color decks get. They were bad enough in the last 2 to 3 years in Standard. Now you start adding cards to them and, well, you just get Esper Controlathons, basically. So, would you reasonably be able to play Phyrexian Obliterator even in a 2-color deck? Not really. I don't think that with Historic being limited to the few sets that it is, that you could reasonably expect 4 black mana on turn 4, we'll say. I mean, if you're playing Rakdos, literally one mountain, just one mountain, any mountain, and now you're delayed an entire turn. And by an entire turn, I mean 3 turns, because 1/3 of your remaining library is mana after the opening of the game. So, I mean, yeah, you could run all duels and just say, like, oh, I've got a bunch of triple red and I've got a bunch of, like, double, triple, and now quad black. I'm just going to run all duels. But, you know, obviously the effect of that is you're basically going to play guaranteed 1 turn behind your opponent if they're not doing that. So, yeah, you could ramp into it, but, I mean, who runs a ramp deck in black to run a 4-cost permanent? That's not normal. And Simic is the big ramp combo right now. Good luck getting a Phyrexian Obliterator out in Simic. Now, some people say, yeah, but Lantern. Well, there's 4 of those in the deck, so you'd have to have one of them make its way to your hand plus a Phyrexian Obliterator and not get either one countered or blown up. Good luck. I wouldn't recommend it. So obviously, the Obliterator is just going into black decks. That's really the only option. And I think they added it because, you know, they're kind of adding hand-picked stuff to make individual powerful decks just a little bit better. Remember, they added Soul Warden because white life gain was amazing as of Heliod. They wanted white life gain trigger Ajani to be like a thing, and it was, you know, arguably tier 1, still is. I'm still winning with it more than I'm losing with it online right now. But to make it compete on a wider scale, they wanted to guarantee it by just upping the power level by a couple % by dropping in Soul Warden, which is like a little bit better than, I don't know, like a Johnny's Welcome. And they did it. I mean, I'm kicking ass with that deck every time I'm forced to play Historic. But Obliterator, I mean, really, do they think that's what was needed for Black Devotion? I mean, they really don't think Grey Merchant is, like, overpowered enough in Standard? I mean, we do have a significant lack of like double and triple colored or mana, you know, devotion black cards because they know what happened last time. I would have just printed more devotion cards and then not printed Grey Merchant. But yeah, they watered it down pretty good, so now they're undoing it with this. So it makes sense. Drop this in. You're either going to win with devotion or you're going to win with the damn card itself. Whether this turns out to be disgustingly overpowered will be yet to be seen, but I mean, it's not an unstoppable shutdown card. It's not like a prison card. It's not like they just added Ensnaring Bridge to Historic. That would be just, oh boy. Yeah, let us build Lantern Control, the most toxic deck ever in the history of the game. Maybe they could make Ensnaring Bridge, Boil Armageddon, Land Destruction, Shutdown Prison. Maybe that'll be an enjoyable, fun upgrade to the format. I mean, it's just a creature. It does die to removal, so it's not like insane. It's not Trawler where you just, with the average deck, cannot get rid of the damn thing. And, you know, some decks would not mind losing 5 permanents. I mean, it's not impossible to play around this card. It's just very difficult. I think it'll turn out to be incredibly powerful, but only in, you know, tiny, narrow decks like Mono Black. In any given game, you only have about a 60% chance of getting a card out that's a 4 out of 60 without draw and scry assistance and fetch assistance, aka tutoring. But then again, in the last set, we just got that lizard that can just, you know, you pay 5 and just bring this directly into play, which you would obviously play because it's double hybrid mana and black cost 2, and it can summon Grey Merchant. So really, the problem with Phyrexian Obliterator isn't Phyrexian Obliterator, it's some of the other cards that are a little bit too powerful for Standard or Historic right now. Now, getting back to Ulamog, who the hell's just going to have 10 mana? I mean, come on. They didn't print the rest of the Eldrazi cost reducers. They didn't print any Eldrazi fetch cards. He has absolutely no support whatsoever that we know of. So the only way you're reasonably getting him out is like traditional green ramp or like Simic ramp if you really want to just absolutely, you know, hit the gas. And he's not instant speed, so good luck summoning him with, what is that, Wilderness Reclamation? However, I mean, that deck already runs Nissa, so all your forests tap for 2. It's got that stupid, I want to say Nyxborn. I don't think that's what it is, but that thing that says like your lands tap for triple or whatever, it basically just gives them like 100 mana. I mean, then you got Hydroid Krasis to go get Ulamog, so, Is it one of the better ways in Historic to spend 10 mana? Yeah. Are there almost as bad ways to spend 10 mana? Yeah. Add a color, play Explosion, win the game. I mean, it's not hard. So do I think they went too far with that one? Not really, but are people having like PTSD flashbacks over Eldrazi coming back after the wonderful time we had with Aetherworks Marvel summoning them all for free? Yeah, I would say it was in poor taste to bring Ulamog back. But at least it wasn't Void Winnower, which I hate that stupid thing, or Emrakul, the Promised End. A card which absolutely does not actually cost 13. And its evasion level is pretty nuts. Flying Trample is highly aggro. It's just, then it's got like control mixed in. It's ridiculous. Ulamog's actually one of the more tame ones. It's kind of like Phyrexian Obliterator. You've got a couple turns of it swinging away wildly before you're just absolutely screwed and lose the game. And you know what? By the time somebody can generate 10 mana, it's time to end the damn game. You know what I mean? Like, somebody's going to win at some point. The game can't go on forever. That said, in today's standard, let alone Historic, you could probably have 10 mana on like turn 4. So once again, it's not Ulamog that's the problem. It's overpowered cards from standard that are the problem. Too much mana access too early. I mean, that's been an ongoing problem in the game for 26 years. Look at the ban list for literally any format. I think the one thing that goes too far in Ulamog is if you counterspell him, they still get the Exile 2 target permanence effects. And that is just not good. And then it's the exact same problem as Hydroid Krasis, which would obviously go in the same deck. You counter the spell, cool, they still get the free card draw, and I think the life gain if I'm not mistaken. So the big problem is, yeah, it's not in play, but the unbelievably powerful effect of the card is virtually impossible to stop. Once they paid to put this on the stack, there's nothing you can do. And I don't like that, and I don't need to tell you that most players don't like that. Like I said, at a certain point, boo-hoo, somebody's got to win the game. Get over it. You're not going to win every game. Oh no, your opponent played a card that's good. Like, get over it. But I do think that Ulamog's annoying, unbalanced. It's like a 2-turn win if it's past turn 13 or whatever. It depends how much they drew. And Obliterator is just annoying to play around. So it's like, would these two be my first choices for Historic? Absolutely not. Why don't they fill in the gaps for cards we badly need? Instead of like, oh guys, how crazy would it be if we drop these into the format? Whoa. It's just like the last time around where they added in Platinum Angel. Who the hell needed Platinum Angel in their life when they played Historic? Who was asking for Platinum Angel? What is that supposed to do to the game that would in any way, shape, or form resemble a benefit? What the hell were they thinking? You want to spice something up? You want to add in an interesting card? Well, I would have said God's Willing, but it's already in standard. But like, yeah, a white counterspell. Okay, protect your stuff, get white going, a defensive card. That fills a hole that we had, if it wasn't already in standard. But that's the example of like this subtle but powerful card that it was an absolute bread and butter staple back when Theros was a thing the first time. It's a bread and butter card now. And if it wasn't already in standard, I would have absolutely said, put this in Historic Anthology. This is going to do some people some good. This is going to balance it out. It's going to let people solve a certain situation, but it's not going to go too far into offense. I think that the offense and like aggressive level of most decks in standard and Historic right now are perfectly fine, if not completely overkill. You don't need to be like, oh, on top of it, Obliterator and Ulamog. We need cards from like the last 10 years that we need, like important cards that people played, the bread and butter cards that are missing. Like, for example, in Historic Anthology 1, they added in Crypt Breaker, a fantastic Eldritch Moon card, 1-drop zombie creature. It's a 1/1. You pay 2, tap it, discard a card, put a 2/2 black zombie creature token into the battlefield. And then tap 3 untapped zombies you control, you draw a card and lose 1 life. It is like the zombie card. 0 evasion, even with like a double zombie lord card, it's still not really safe to swing with this. But if somebody destroys it, your entire deck doesn't collapse and it's over if you're playing Zombie Tribal, but then boy, you will get some mileage out of this card if you're playing Zombie Tribal. That was probably the best card they could have possibly added because zombies were almost kind of a thing and this put them over the edge into a playable deck. That's how you pick cards for a Historic Anthology, not Ulamog and Obliterator, whoa guys, ooh, power level, ooh. Somebody at Wizards had some weird, like, unhealthy obsession or fetish or something with hyper-powerful cards, and that person needs to be fired. So unfortunately, for every Phyrexian arena where you're just like, all right, okay, let's get this going. Now that's a card, they put in Platinum Angels. So I guess Ulamog and Obliterator are the Platinum Angel of this set. Why they chose to show them off first when they're going to be the most controversial, I don't know. I guess, well, I'm making a video talking about it. But if everybody's like, why the hell did they do this? This is terrible. They're trying to ruin the format. I don't think the idea extends to Magic of no press is bad press or no bad press is something. Whatever that saying is, it doesn't apply. You don't want people talking shit about your game before you even announce the next thing for it. So what do you guys think of the inclusion of these two? Are you excited? Are you not? Do you think they're borderline too powerful, completely too powerful, or not a problem at all? They're an appropriate power level. I'm curious to hear what you think. And even if you're as alarmed as I am by choices like this, and the direction the game is going, and the greedy idea of having an anthology at all, just remember you don't have to play this. Although I did hear a rumor, I think this is confirmed, that they're adding Historic as a permanent queue that you can play forever. So it won't be a rotating format. It won't be like a weekend special event. It will just be, oh, are you playing Standard or are you playing Historic? So that's a big step in the wrong direction. But if you like playing it, I guess it's not. And the whole point was, like, I get to play my old cards in Arena that I already collected. That doesn't work once a week, you know what I mean? So I kind of get it, but yeah, I think I'll be staying away from Historic unless it's Historic Artisan, Historic Pauper, or Historic Brawl. And I don't think these two cards ruin any of those three, especially since it isn't in two of them. So anyway, look forward to having Ulamog be all of your Brawl commanders, or whatever the hell they call them, and I will see you guys next video.